Welcome back. Let's reading some more before the heat arrive. Because the sun is shining, it will go up. Now it's 26. It will get up to 30. When it get up to 30, it's too hot in my living room. I have to give up reading and just watching Star Trek. I'm copying some video from my external hard drive to the app. This costs like $150. I have to buy every second month. But I just pay my bills today. I pay my rent apartment is Monday. And this week will be very hot in Denmark, like 30 degrees, even this autumn. So I will just think I just keep reading the whole day and waiting the sun go down. The sun will go down in 8 hours. So let's read this final old Russian tank, main battle tank. Then I'm finish my Russian tanks. But I read it a long time ago, but now we do again. It's on the battlefield in Ukraine, in this war in Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine war is on the battlefield.
T-64. For other uses, see T-64, disambiguation. This article needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. Find sources: T-64 News Times Newspapers Times Books Times Scholar Times Chester, January 2024. Learn how and when to remove this message. The T-64 is a Soviet tank manufactured in Kharkiv and designed by Alexander Morozov. The tank was introduced in the early 1960s. It was a more advanced counterpart to the T-62. The T-64 served in tank divisions, while the T-62 supported infantry in motor rifle divisions. It introduced a number of advanced features including composite armor, a compact engine and transmission, and a smoothbore 125mm gun equipped with an autoloader to allow the crew to be reduced to 3 so the tank could be smaller and lighter. In spite of being armed and armored like a heavy tank, the T-64 weighed only 38 tons, 42 short tons, 37 long tons. These features made the T-64 expensive to build, significantly more so than previous generations of Soviet tanks. This was especially true of the power plant, which was time-consuming to build and cost twice as much as more conventional designs. Several proposals were made to improve the T-64 with new engines, but chief designer Alexander Alexandrovich Morozov's political power in Moscow kept the design in production in spite of any concerns about price. The T-64 formed the design basis of the Soviet T-80, which entered service in 1976. The tank is in use in a few nations or regions as of 2023. The T-64 is undergoing significant factory overhauls and modernization in Ukraine. Overview, edit. The T-64 was conceived at the Kharkiv Morozov Machine Building Design Bureau, as the next generation main battle tank by Alexander Morozov, the designer of the T-54, which, in the meantime, would be incrementally improved by Leonid N. Kartsev's Nizhny Tagil Bureau, by the models T-54A, T-54B, T-55, and T-55O. The T-64 was the first Soviet tank to use an autoloader for its 125mm gun, allowing one crew member's position to be omitted and helping to keep the size and weight of the tank down. Tank crewmen would joke that the designers had finally caught up with their unofficial hymn, Three Tankers, a song written to commemorate the crewmen fighting in the Battle of Kark Hingol, in three-man BT-5 tanks in 1939. The T-64 also pioneered other Soviet tank technology. The T-64 model of 1967 introduced the 125mm smoothbore gun, and the T-64B of 1976 would be able to fire an anti-tank guided missile through its gun barrel. Soviet military planners considered the T-64 the first of the third-generation tanks and the first main battle tank. The T-64 design was used as basis by LKZ for the gas turbine-powered T-80 main battle tank. The T-64 turret was adopted for early T-80 tank models, with its main gun and automatic loading mechanism, and upgraded armor. The T-64 was only supplied to the Soviet Army and its successors. It was never exported before 1991, unlike the T-54/55. The tank equipped elite and regular formations in Eastern Europe and elsewhere, the T-64 model being first deployed with East Germany's Group of Soviet Forces in Germany, GSFG, in 1976, and sometime later in Hungary's Southern Group of Forces, SFG. By 1981, the improved T-64B began to be deployed in East Germany and later in Hungary. While it was believed that the T-64 was reserved for elite units, it was also used by much lower-level non-ready formations, for example, the Odessa Military District's 14th Army. With the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, T-64 tanks remained in the arsenals of Russia, Ukraine, Belarus and Uzbekistan. In mid-2014, slightly fewer than 2,000 of the former Soviet inventory of T-64 tanks were in service with the military of Ukraine and about 4,000 were out of service and awaiting destruction in Russia. Development History, Edit. Object 430, Edit. Studies for the design of a new battle tank started as early as 1951. The KB-60M team was formed at the Kharkiv Design Bureau of the Kharkiv Transport Machine Building Factory No. 75 named for Milishev, Russian, 75. By engineers coming back from Nizhny Tagil, with Morozov at its head. A project named Obyekt 430 gave birth to 3 prototypes which were tested in Kubinka in 1958. Those vehicles had characteristics that were going to influence and radically alter the design of tanks on this side of the Iron Curtain. For the first time, an extremely compact opposed piston engine was used, the 4TD, designed by the plant's engine design team. The transmission system comprised 2 lateral gears on each side of the engine. Those 2 innovations yielded a very short engine compartment with the opening located beneath the turret. The engine compartment volume was almost half that of the T-54. An improved cooling system and a new lightweight suspension was fitted, featuring hollow metallic wheels of a small diameter and caterpillar tracks with rubber joints. The tank would be armed with the D-54TS and would have frontal armor of 120mm. As it did not present a clear superiority in combat characteristics when compared to the T-55, which was entering active service, Morozov decided that production was not yet ready given the project's drawbacks. However, studies conducted on the Object 430U, featuring a 122mm gun and 160mm of armor, demonstrated that the tank had the potential to carry the firepower and armor of a heavy tank onto a medium tank chassis. A new project was consequently started, the Object 432. Object 432, Edit. The gun fitted on this new tank was a powerful 115mm D-68, 2A21. This was a potentially risky decision to replace the human loader by an electro-hydraulic automatic system, since the technology was new to Russian designers. The crew was reduced to 3, which allowed a considerable reduction in internal volume and external visible silhouette, and consequently in weight, from 36 tons, Object 430, to 30.5 tons. The height dropped by 76 millimeters. However, the arrival of the British 105mm L7 gun and the US M68 variant of it, fitted to the Centurion and M60 tanks, forced the team to undertake another audacious premiere, with the adoption of composite armor. The recently created process was called K-combination by Western armies. This protection consisted of an aluminium alloy layer between two high-strength steel layers. As a consequence, the weight of the prototype rose eventually to 34 tons. But, as the engine was now a 700 HP, 515 kilowatts, 5 TDF, also locally designed, its mobility remained excellent, far superior to that of the T-62. The Object 432 was ready in September 1962 and production started in October 1963 in the Kharkiv plant. On the 30th of December 1966, it entered service as the T-64. T-64, Edit. Even as the first T-64s were rolling off the assembly lines, the design team was working on a new version, named Object 434, which would allow it to maintain firepower superiority. The brand new and very powerful 125mm D-81T gun, from the Perm Weapons factory, was fitted to the tank. This gun was merely a scaled-up version of the 115mm smoothbore cannon from the T-62. The larger size of the 125mm ammunition meant that less could be carried inside the T-64, and with a fourth crewman loader taking up space as well, the tank would only have a 25-round capacity. This was unacceptably low for the Soviet designers, but strict dimensional parameters forbade them from enlarging the tank to increase interior space. The solution was to replace the human loader with a mechanical autoloader, cutting the crew to 3 and marking the first use of autoloaders in a Soviet MBT. The 6ET's 10 autoloader has 28 rounds and can fire 8 shots per minute. The stabilizer, a 2E23, was coupled to the new TPD-2-1, 1G15-1, sight. Night driving was also adapted with the new TPN-1-43, a periscope, which would benefit from the illumination of a powerful infrared L2G projector, fitted on the left side of the gun. The shielding was improved, with fiberglass replacing the aluminium alloy in the armor, and small spring-mounted plates fitted along the mudguards, known as the gill skirt, to cover the top of the suspension and the side tanks. They were, however, extremely fragile and were often removed. Some small storage spaces were created along the turret, with a compartment on the right and 3 boxes on the front left. Snorkels were mounted on the rear of the turret. An NBC protection system was fitted and the hatches were widened. Prototypes were tested in 1966 and 1967 and, as production began after the 600th T-64, it entered service in the Soviet Army under the designation T-64. Chief Engineer Morozov was awarded the Lenin Prize for this model's success. Designed for elite troops, the T-64 was constantly updated as available equipment was improved. After only 3 years in service, a first modernization occurred, regarding 1. Fire control. by replacing the sights with the TPD-2-49 day sight with an optical coincidence rangefinder and a TPN-1-49-23 night sight, and stabilization by mounting a 2E26 system. To the radio by mounting AR123M. 3 night vision with a TBN-4 PAR for the driver and a TNP-165A for the tank leader. His battle post was transformed by mounting a small stabilized turret with an anti-aircraft NSVT 12.7mm 108 machine gun, electrically guided through an optical PZU-5 sight, and fed with 300 rounds. It could be used from within the tank so that the tank leader could avoid being exposed, as on previous tanks. The possibility of mounting a KMT-6 anti-mine system was also added. A derived version appeared at the same time, designed for the commanding officer and named T-64AK. It comprised AR-130M radio with a 10M telescopic antenna, which could be used only in a static position as it required shrouds, an artillery aiming circle PAB-2M and TNA-3 navigation station. All of these could be powered by an auxiliary gasoline-fired generator. In 1976, the weapons system was improved by mounting AD-81TM to a 46-1, stabilized by a 2E28M2, supplied by an automatic 6ETs-10M. The night sight was replaced by a TNPA-65 and the engine could accept different fuels, including diesel fuel, kerosene or gasoline. The production, first carried on the B variant, stopped in 1980. The majority of T-64s were further modernized after 1981, by mounting a 6-smoke grenade launcher 81mm 902 on each side of the gun, and by replacing the gill plates by a rubber skirt for a longer life. Some of them seem to have been fitted with reactive bricks, as the T-64AV, after 1985, or even with laser TPD-K1 telemeters instead of the optical TPD-2-49 optical coincidence rangefinder, 1981. Almost all T-64s were modernized into T-64R, between 1977 and 1981, by reorganizing external storage and snorkels, similar to the T-64A. T-64B, edit. The design team was carrying on its work on new versions. Problems with the setup of the 5TDF engine occurred as the local production capacity was proven to be insufficient against a production done in 3 factories, Malyshev in Kharkiv, Kirov in Leningrad and Uralvagon Zavod. From 1961, an alternative to the Object 432 was studied, with a 12V-cylinder V45 engine, the Object 436. 3 prototypes were tested in 1966 in the Chelyabinsk factory. The order to develop a model derived from the 434 with the same engine given to the Object 438, later renamed as the Object 439. 4 tanks of this type were built and tested in 1969, which showed the same mobility as the production version, but mass production was not started. They served, however, as a basis for the design of the T-72 engine compartment. At the beginning of the 1970s, the design team was trying to improve the tank further. The T-64A-2M study in 1973, with its more powerful engine and its reinforced turret, served as a basis for 2 projects. One Object 476 with a 6TD 1000 HP, 735 kilowatts, engine which served as a model for the T-80 combat compartment. 2 Object 447 which featured a new fire control with a laser telemeter, and which was able to fire gun-launched anti-tank guided missiles. For the latter, the order was given to start its production under the name T-64B, as well as a derived version, which shared 95% of its components, the Object 437, without the missile guidance system for cost reasons. The latter was almost twice as much produced under the designation T-64B1. On the 3rd of September, 1976, the T-64B and the T-64B1 were declared good for the service, featuring the improved D81TM gun, a 46-2, with a 2E26M stabilizer, a 6ETs-40 loader and a 1A33 fire control, including 1A 1V517 ballistic calculator, 2A 1G21 sight with laser telemetry, 3A 1B11 crosswind sensor. Its forward capacity reaches 1.8 m without equipment. The T-64B had the ability to fire the new 9M112 Cobra radio-guided missile, NATO code at 8 Songster. The vehicle then carries 8 missiles and 28 shells. The missile control system is mounted in front of the tank leader small turret and has many changes. The T-64B1 carries only 37 shells and has 2,007.62 mm rounds, against 1,250 for the T-64B. They were modernized in 1981 by the replacement of the gun by a 2A46M1, the stabilizer by a 2E42, and the mounting of a 902 Attacker 1 smoke grenade launcher in 2 groups of 4, on each side of the gun. 2 command versions are realized, very similar to the T-64AK, the T-64BK and the T-64B1K. The decision in October 1979 to start production of the 6TD engine, and its great similarity with the 5TDF engine, allowed after some study to fit it in versions B and B1, but also A and AK, yielding the new models T-64M, T-64AKM, T-64BM and T-64BAM, entering service in 1983. Production of all versions ended in 1987. Total production reached almost 13,000. Modernization in Ukraine, edit. After the dissolution of the USSR, Ukraine carried on the development of T-64 modernization, as the original and main factory was in this country. As a result, modernized variants of the T-64 had become the most common tank in the Ukrainian inventory by 2022. 2 different upgrade packages were developed in 1999. One T-64BM2 with a 57D FM 850 HP, 625 kilowatts, engine, a new 1A43U fire control, a new 6ETs-43 loader and the possibility to fire the 9M119 missile, NATO code at 11 sniper. 2 T-64U which integrated on top the 1A45 fire control, from the T-80U and T-84, PNK-4SU and TKN-4S optics for the tank commander and PZU-7 for the AA machine gun. The tank commander is then able to drive the tank and to use the gun directly if needed. The 2 variants are also protected by Contact 5 modular reactive armor, able to resist to kinetic energy projectiles, as opposed to the first models which were efficient only against high explosive anti-tank, heat-shaped charge ammunition. Those 2 variants could also be remotorized with the 6TDF 1000 HP, 735 kilowatts, engine. 1 T-64BM Bulat Ukrainian Army on use modernization, incorporating niche, knife, reactive armor that offers better performance dealing with tandem warheads than the Soviet Contact 5. New Ukrainian-made 125mm KBA-3 gun, to 1 KO-1 air night sight and capability of firing the Ukrainian Combat, UK, RU, tandem warhead anti-tank guided missile. In 2010, the Kharkiv Mileshev factory upgraded 10 T-64B tanks, originally produced in Kharkiv in 1980, to T-64B Bulat standard, and a further 19 were delivered in 2011. These 29 tanks are being upgraded under a $200 million, $25.1 million, contract signed in April 2009. As of October 2011, the Ukrainian Army has 76 T-64B Bulat in service. According to Mileshev factory chief engineer Konstantin Isaac, the T-64B Bulat is armored to the level of modern tanks. It has niche, knife, reactive armor, and water active protection system. The Bulat weighs 45 tons, 44 long tons, and with its 850 HP, 630 kilowatts, 5 TDFM multi-fuel diesel engine can travel at 70 kilometers per hour, 43 miles per hour, with a range of 385 kilometers, 239 mi. It retains the 125 mm smooth bore gun with an autoloader for 28 rounds, some of which can be guided missiles. It has a 12.7 mm AA machine gun, and a 7.62 mm coaxial machine gun. 1 T-64B M2 Bulat. A 2019 modernization program with TPN-1 TPV thermal sight, 1 a 43U fire control system, 1 H-46M sight for the combat ATGM, Livid 2 radios, Basalt battlefield information system, raised turret ring, improved KHS-CHVK Niche reactive armor, armor shield above the commander's cupola, 12 mm armor for external fuel tanks, anti-RPG screens beside the engine compartment, and new 1000 HP 6TD1 engine and transmission. New 5TD engines were no longer manufactured. This was conducted at the Kharkiv Armored Vehicle Plant, KHBTZ, with the engine compartment enlarged for the new engine by the Mileshev factory, ZIM. Upgraded tanks were field tested in April 2021, and several were paraded in the August Independence Day Parade. 1 T-64BV Model 2017. In 2019, Ukroboronprom reported that the Kharkiv Armored Plant, KHBTZ, had delivered over 100 updated tanks to the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The upgraded tanks included new thermal imaging for all crew, remove lunar infrared searchlight, include TPN-1 TPV Ukrainian night sight in place of TPN-1-49-23, niche reactive armor modules designed for bolt-on replacement on T-64BV turrets, SN 4215 networked satellite navigation unit, and Libid K2RB digital radio, under license from Motorola, providing secure communications with a 70 km range. In August 2019, Ukroboronprom announced the Lviv Armored Plant, LBTZ, had also started modernizing T-64s to the 2017 standard. 1 T-64BV Model 2022. In early 2022, Ukroboronprom was reported to be testing another modernization of the T-64BV, ordered by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. The tank has new third-generation surveillance and sighting units and is equipped with a new 12.7mm Snipex Laska K2 heavy machine gun. It features new up-to-date radio stations and additional navigation, internal and external communication systems which fully meets NATO standards. The exterior fuel tanks are now also protected by 12mm steel plates. Production history, edit. Sources differ on the initial production date of the tank that is set between 1963 and 1967. However, it is established that the T-64 formally entered service with the Soviet Army in 1967 and was publicly revealed in 1970. The T-64 was KMDB's high-technology offering, intended to replace the IS-3 and T-10 heavy tanks in independent tank battalions. Meanwhile, the T-72 was intended to supersede the T-55 and T-62 in equipping the bulk of the Soviet tank and mechanized forces, as well as for export partners and East Bloc satellite states. The T-64 introduced